Update: Dad hates my house and apparently expects me to take in my brother's children at some point. Original post: I don't know if this is the right sub for this, but in this moment, as the only blood-related woman on my father's side of the family, it feels gendered. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. A few days ago, my dad came over to my house for the first time in quite a while. I've had a lot of renovations done since he last saw the place when we first moved in. I have a nervous system condition, which, while I am very fortunate to be able to manage it in such a way that it usually doesn't impact my life most days out of any given month, can render certain simple tasks very difficult for me when I'm having a flare. It's also important, as part of managing my condition and maintaining my high level of function, to limit certain activities that can bring about a crash or a flare. My husband is also disabled. He has hypermobile EDS, so together we made a list of things we'd love to have as accommodations in the home we share, and we either DIY'd those things or found contractors to do them for us. I'm really happy with the results. I find that these accommodating renovations make my life a lot easier, I have fewer crashes, and overall more energy. My husband is elated with how much more functional he can be after we made these changes. My father isn't a fan. He thinks it all makes the house too weird. He's worried about the resale value, not that we're planning to sell anytime soon. He had a lot of comments when he came over. In fact, it was almost all he talked about. I kept trying to gently tell him that this is just what works for us, and then divert the subject, but he was getting a bit worked up, which isn't really like him in those types of situations. The plan for his visit was that he'd come over, meet my foster dog that he might adopt, take the dogs for a walk, then get lunch. When I left him alone for a minute to go use the bathroom after we'd walked the dogs, I came back out and found that he'd attempted to pull one of our accommodating mechanisms out of the kitchen wall. He hadn't caused any functional damage, but he did cause aesthetic damage in that it will now need to be repainted over. I was shocked and kind of hysterical in my reaction, and I raised my voice at him when I saw what he was doing. I think I yelled, "What the heck are you doing, Dad? What's your problem?" And he responded, "I just wanted to see if it was removable. Sorry, it's just too weird. That's too weird. It's just not going to work when Billy and Bobby move in with you." Billy and Bobby are my nephews, my brother's kids. I have never invited them to stay with me, let alone move in, for any amount of time, and I've never been asked to do so. Even in the event that my brother and sister-in-law passed away in some tragic manner, to my knowledge, I should be very far down a very long list of people who could be asked to take those kids in before I would be asked. So, I was pretty shocked my dad would say something like that out of the blue, and with so much frustrated emotion, about Billy and Bobby moving in, because there's no reason, to my knowledge, for anyone to think that would possibly be happening. I asked him to clarify repeatedly, but he just waved it off and told me to forget he said anything, and that he didn't want to talk about it. I pressed him, and all he said was, "Well, honey, it's a massive house. You have room for 2 boys. When I asked him why he would even bring it up, though, and clarified that not only did I have absolutely no desire to host my nephews for a visit, let alone to move them in, he clammed up again and just said, "Forget I ever said anything." He apologized for damaging my home, immediately transferred a larger sum than necessary to me via Zelle to fix the scratch he'd made, and then took me out to lunch as we planned prior. The rest of the day with him was pretty normal, and I guess I was just a little shocked or something because I didn't bring it up again. But now that it's been a few days, I can't get it out of my head, and I'm so annoyed. First of all, my dad hasn't ever been, and would never be, that aggressive about any decoration or renovation in my brother's homes. He just wouldn't, and I can't help but feel that he is less respectful of my home because I'm a woman, which sucks. But more upsetting or confusing, what the heck was he talking about in terms of my nephews? Like, is my family conspiring in some way to move those kids in with me? It wouldn't be the first time that my family assumed I'd take care of those kids without asking me first, but in the past, it was just babysitting, and I have directly told everyone that even that is unacceptable. So I would be really shocked if my brother or sister-in-law thought that was acceptable. I guess I'm just spinning out and don't really know what to do about it. I'm stuck between asking my father about it again first, or just reaching out to my brother directly. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. My family doesn't talk about things head on, so personally, I would call my brother and say, Dad came to visit and was saying some wild and crazy things about how your kids were going to move into my house. Isn't that nuts? Because that would never freaking happen. Haha. And if there's any pushback, remember no is a complete sentence. F no also works. This is the way. The fact that he was actively trying to tear your house apart is a huge red flag. My bet is your brother is getting a divorce, and they were just going to dump them on you since his job is so demanding. Honestly, I feel like a freaking idiot that the two of them getting divorced hadn't even crossed my mind. Not that they have an actively bad marriage or anything, but I think their dynamic is weird, and I guess I wouldn't be shocked. Thank you for this insight. I mean, either way, it's a no from me for various reasons. Better yet, group text to them. Guys, I'm worried about Dad. He came over the other day and kinda flipped out about our disability accommodations and tried to rip one off the wall. Then he thought Billy and Bobby were coming to live here, but couldn't explain why. I'm worried. Has anyone else noticed strange, aggressive behavior? I think I'll go with this, but on a call. I want to hear a response in real time. My dad has normalized triangulation a bit too much in this family for my comfort. How old is your dad? Could he be having some sort of mental episode where he thinks your nephews are supposed to move in with you? Barring that, I'd ask your brother, hey, do you have any idea why Dad would say this? Is something going on? He's in his 70s, but he's still sharp enough to be working. I asked my other brother, nebulously, without mentioning the reason why, who works with my dad every day, if he'd noticed any decline, and he said Dad seems sharp as ever in their work environment. It's pretty mentally demanding work, so I think it would be evident there. I'll also note, though, my dad rejected an OCD diagnosis when he was in therapy after my parents' divorce. So he's not without any history of mental illness. Not sure if that would cause this behavior, though. Now for the first update. So I talked to my brother on the phone about the situation, and he expressed that he had absolutely no idea why our father would imply that Billy and Bobby would need to move in with me at any point. He seemed genuinely surprised and had no clue what the heck Dad was talking about. He claims to have absolutely never expressed anything like that to our dad, and I believe him. I asked him if there was any possible reason at all that Dad would think I'd need to take in my nephews. Like, is there some problem Dad thinks he is pre-solving without consulting either of us? Is there an illness, an impending divorce, or anything I don't know about? My brother assured me that there's nothing like that going on, and that, as I assumed, I, of course, wouldn't even be near the top of the list of permanent caregivers even if something was going on, because he knows I run 2 businesses out of my house, and also just am not up for taking his kids in, unless I am the absolute last safe resort. Both of us are in agreement, as is our other oldest brother, that Dad generally doesn't seem to have any other signs that we've noticed of declining cognitive function, like, at all. But since this was such a strange outburst, we're still concerned that this is just the earliest sign. My brother Billy and Bobby's dad is going to talk to our dad about it ASAP and see what he says or what explanation he can give, then we'll go from there. The issue that we're both aware of is that my dad, while a loving father and a good man to many, is a bit of a liar and a lot of a manipulator. He has a lot of signs of OCD and gets fixated on things, then tries to manipulate to get his way with his fixation. He means well, but he has been known to be full of crap and to have his own strange agendas that don't have much to do with anyone else's wants or needs. So, unfortunately, my brother and my brother has volunteered to go first LOL, are going to have to confront him by essentially saying, Dad, it's really important that you're honest about whether you are confused or intentionally lying or triangulating or manipulating, because that's the difference between us freaking out about your health versus us just understanding that sometimes you lie to push your agenda but your brain is fine. Thank you to everyone who gave me feedback here. You've all been so sweet and supportive, except that one guy who, for some reason, was dead convinced that I didn't pay for my own home and commented several times and DM'd me about it. I did pay for my home and it's solely in my name, you weirdo. I'll keep y'all updated on what my brother and I figure out going forward. Now for the last update 8 months later. I know this was forever ago, but life has been lifing pretty hard since then. The OG post and first update, which I made at the top of the original, are in my post history. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for your concern and overall support. This sub is full of such lovely and helpful people. So many of you left tremendously helpful comments and sent me such kind messages as well. So I guess I'll start by saying that my dad doesn't have dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that. If anything, he is perhaps experiencing a very slight cognitive decline due to age, but only insofar as his typical lifelong nonsense becoming a little more pronounced, and he's not really as slick as he thinks he is, or as good at manipulating as he's used to being. Basically, he's used to being able to get away with a lot more manipulation of his kids than he's able to get away with now. I don't even think the onus for this particular episode of his is directly an age thing at all, though. I think it's a situational thing. After I talked to my dad multiple times, conferred with my brothers after they talked to my dad multiple times, and after we basically had to tell our father, hey, if you're not totally upfront about what's going on, we have to assume that you need to see a doctor. And we're not just going to drop this like we usually drop uncomfortable things in this family. I think I have figured out what was up. Ever since I moved out of my father's house, leaving an empty bedroom and office space in a house that already had a designated bedroom for the kids because they had a lot of sleepovers there, my sister-in-law has been obsessively pushing the idea that my nephew should start living summers and school breaks at my dad's house. I knew she'd brought this up a few times, but I didn't know how adamant she was being, because this push entirely took place after I had moved. My dad doesn't live far from my brother and sister-in-law's place, 15 minutes away, so it's not like they'd be having some special summer experience in a new location. I think she just wants them out of her house for the summer, LOL. My nephews love staying at Grandpa's, because my dad has never been a real caregiver, not even when we were kids. So there are literally no rules, no bedtimes, no limit on sweets, no parental controls on the TV, no limit on screen time, no one checking if they brush their teeth or making them shower or do chores or change their clothes. Zero supervision over them making messes or doing dumb stuff, etc. So of course, when their mom asked them, do you want to spend the summer at Grandpa's? Do you want to go ask Grandpa if he'll let you stay the summer with him? They went feral over the idea. And my dad was immediately put in the position of either agreeing or disappointing his two grandkids and saying no. My dad hates saying no to family outright because he never wants family to say no to him at all. So he agreed, of course. My dad agreed to this last summer, but even with the help of a daily babysitter, who apparently quit halfway through, and I assume it's either because my dad made her uncomfortable, which is a whole different kettle of fish, or because those kids are super entitled. And even though the kids are getting more and more independent, it was torturous and exhausting for him. He never wanted to do that again. But, and my dad didn't say this is me applying what I know about him in general, my father is addicted to being the hero of the family. He needs us all to need him, and he needs us all to think he's great. Plus, he has a massive ego about defying the idea of aging and being ultra-energetic and healthy, etc., and not an old man. He could not bring himself to admit that he doesn't have the energy for those kids. And he didn't want to say no because he doesn't want to normalize anyone saying no to anyone in this family. My father thrives on no one being allowed to have boundaries or say no, but it has now also become a prison he's built himself into. So he was planning to pawn the kids off on me next summer. He was going to agree to take them and then bring them to my house and, in his words, ease into a smooth transition from his house to mine. From the sounds of it, and also just knowing my dad, I assume he was going to beg me to take the kids for a single day, drop them off with overnight bags and say, didn't you say they could sleep over? Then make up a ton of excuses as to why they needed to stay at my house for longer and longer until he ran out the summer. Personally, I know this wouldn't have worked. I'd literally be dropping the kids off at their own damn house or calling the cops within 24 hours. But I don't think my dad understands just how badly his plan would have panned out, because I used to be a massive doormat. I think he truly believes he could manipulate the situation and me into working out in his favor. He apparently asked sister-in-law already if it was okay, and she said yes. But she never even asked me about it or brought it up the whole time we were all wondering what my dad was on about. She only confirmed this after my dad finally admitted to his scheme, which is wild, because she had just stood there and said nothing about it, while my brothers and I were trying to figure out if our dad was insane. And to be fair, I think sister-in-law knew the whole time that my dad was going to fully pawn her kids onto me, and she didn't want to say anything and risk having to have her children, gasp, living in her own house all year. I truly don't know what she thought was about to happen, and when I asked her, "So, you didn't think you should even confirm this with me?" she swore that she remembered talking to me about it, which, no girl, you did not. I would never agree to that. My brother is fairly livid with his wife. He generally hates how reliant she is on outside help to raise the kids, when he's already such an involved dad, and they literally have multiple forms of paid childcare. And we are all becoming increasingly less patient with my father's triangulation BS. Like, I'm in my 30s, my older brothers are both pushing 50, and it's insane that he's still scheming and claiming it's all in the name of what's best for the family, because we all have our own families now. But he acts like we are bickering children whom he has to manage in order to keep the family together. Extra insane because my brothers and I were not children at the same time. When really, he's just obsessively trying to maintain his preferred status quo, in a reality where it makes less and less sense to maintain. This was all so foolish, and I'm truly annoyed. Like I said, I've had a lot going on before, and since his initial outburst, some really good things that needed my attention, and some really hard things too. And instead of getting to be more fully present in what was going on in my own life, I had my focus split and pulled away by worrying that my father was potentially suffering from neurological issues and refusing to be seen for it. My brothers and I all just wasted so much time on this, all for it to be some stupid BS about his pride and him applying his own preferences to our lives again. Anyway, thank you again to everyone who gave me good insight and advice. I really appreciate y'all being here when I was spinning out about it. Sister-in-law pawning her kids off is wild. What did she or they think parenting would actually be like? Bravo for boundaries. I think she thought she would magically change as a person. She's always been too anxious and fragile to function, plus incredibly inept, and as it turns out, motherhood was not a magical cure for that. That's really freaking sad. Poor kids. My pity for her is less by far than that for those children. I do have serious sympathy for my nephews. They've been spoiled to such a damaging degree, and now they're getting bullied and socially punished at school for being entitled bratty crybabies. It sucked to literally watch my family. My sister-in-law is not the only one to blame here. Either insist upon or passively endorse the consistent decision to make them into worse and worse little people. My dad is so astonished at how horrible their behavior is, and he keeps exclaiming about it, coming out of nowhere, when I feel like I've been watching a slow-motion train crash for years. Last story. Am I the a-hole for saying something to my neighbors about not shoveling my elderly neighbor's driveway? I have lived in my cul-de-sac for 4 years. Every year when it snows, and it doesn't snow much since I'm in the DC region, my 8-year-old daughter and I shovel my 80-year-old neighbor's driveway. She is a widower who lives alone and is unable to do it herself. She has no children. My issue is that we are surrounded by at least 7 other able-bodied adults in our cul-de-sac, and each year they don't do a damn thing to help her. Today, as I was shoveling her driveway, my neighbor finished his and said goodbye before going inside. I asked if he would help me with hers, and he laughed and said all the other neighbors know that shoveling her driveway is my thing. I said it was really awful that he wouldn't help an elderly woman who can't do it herself, and I wondered how he would feel if it were his mother. He just shrugged and went inside. I am livid. We are getting up to 13 inches of snow, and I'll be outside multiple times today shoveling 2 driveways. I wonder if I am the a-hole because it's my choice to help her, but I can't help feeling let down by my neighbors. Anyhow, I'm just curious what you all think. One of my mother's neighbors will snow blow my mom's driveway if we get a big dump. She's still able-bodied enough to do most snowfalls in piecemeal fashion, but she is a senior woman living alone on a cul-de-sac. Knowing her neighbor will come over with his snowblower when the snow gets too heavy is really nice. You are appreciated. I gotta make that guy cookies or something. Humanity restored when people help others, just out of the kindness of their hearts, not because they have to. I have a snowblower. When I have time, I clear the ends of my favorite people's driveways. My friends think I'm crazy. Nothing fills my heart with joy like helping others with zero expectation in return.